Good morning. Thanks for being here. I am Sarah Steltz, as Chris said, Vice President of Economic Competitiveness at the Chamber of Commerce. And we're here today to have a conversation about momentum. And I think we've all heard it said that nobody is harder on Philadelphia than Philadelphians. And that may be true sometimes, but we're trying to do things differently this weekend. We're trying to have a different conversation, and Philadelphia has a lot to be excited about. You know, we have a new mayor, right? Exactly. We're working together to apply to big federal opportunities like the Good Jobs Challenge and Hydrogen Hub, and we're seeing results. We have James Beard Award winners, and we are the best place to visit. You know, I think we have a lot right around the corner. It's the 250th anniversary, as Danae said. We got the All-Star Game. We got the World Cup. We have a lot of things happening, including, let's not forget, WrestleMania, right around the corner. My personal favorite. So we might not be perfect, right? But there's a lot to be optimistic about. And I have some friends here with me today to help us build on and hold on to some of those positive vibes that we have happening. So to start, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Javier, and then we'll get into a couple questions.
Yes, as you can see up here, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. But I also wear another hat. I am now Executive Director of Live Work Philadelphia, which will launch in 2024 in partnership with Drexel University. And our role is all about resident attraction to the city of Philadelphia.
Thanks, Javier.
I have a similar title. You can tell where we get with those titles that put strategic in the name. I'm Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Ben Franklin Technology Partners, and many years with different hats in Philadelphia, currently also on the board of Impact PHL, which continues to work to find ways that we attract private investment to the things that make a difference in Philadelphia. And the board of PACT, which thinks about investment more broadly. We'll talk to that a little bit here too.
Thank you both. So to get us started, can you talk about something that's happened recently that for you has you really excited? Talk about a win and talk about the opportunity that you think it presents for all of us and for the region more broadly.
Absolutely. So at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, about a year and a half ago, our president, Jennifer Rodriguez, reached out to other chambers in the city, the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, the African American Chamber of Commerce, and the LGBTQ Independence Chamber. And together they decided to drill down to bring about some change needed for the environment in Philadelphia for small businesses. And they chose the attack on lowering the taxes. So the business receipts taxes in particular here in Philadelphia. And they were very successful in doing that. This past July, they were very successful in doing that. And to me, it's not only a win for the obvious outcome of lowering taxes, it was proof what collaboration can look like and what can it achieve ultimately.
Thanks, Javier. Margaret?
I have several wins. First is going to sound really much more self-serving, but it isn't. This week, Ben Franklin announced a first close for our GoPA fund of $28 million, which is great. It's great because it's a really tricky time to be raising capital. It's also great because, to Chris's point, we lose all the time versus Boston in terms of what money we invest back here. And so even if it isn't explicitly about tech equity lens, it's about reminding people that there's a lot to invest in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania. So this is only a third of where we want to get to with this fund, and we have plans and ideas of how that can happen. But it's just a reminder to people, like, oh, there's something to invest in back at home. Don't just put your money in a market that goes all over the world. Invest back at home. Sarah mentioned all these different recent wins. We just got designated as an EDA tech hub for precision medicine, it's great. It's not money yet for everybody who's already been calling my colleague Tony Green to get their check. But what it is it's a chance to compete for $75 million from the federal government that will only like a fraction of those who got this designation will get that money. But we will only be successful if equity and workforce is baked in. No more equity frosting on top of a proposal that otherwise didn't look that way. And that's a huge opportunity for us in these next several months. The third I want to share is that the governor's key team, the head of the Department of Community Economic Development and the lead person for the full Commonwealth government around innovation, came to Philly to speak at PAC's conference. Philadelphia Alliance for Capital and Technology brought together 900 people. Their group still looks different than this group when everyone's got their tables pulled together. They're working hard, too, to make it more diverse. But the fact that the state government is there talking to private capital about how do we grow innovation and what matters for PA is a moment and a win for us that I'm really excited about this week.
Thanks. And I think the Tech Hubs piece in particular, for those of us in the room, and I see some of those faces who've been in workforce for a while, we all know the feeling when a partnership or an organization approaches you just before it's time to write an application, and they're ready to go on a workforce program. And we know that it takes a long time and it takes intention to build something like that. So the idea that this is critical to the success of the application, I think signals change and is really meaningful for those of us in the workforce space. So I'm not trying to bring us down in any way, but in order to capitalize on some of these things that you've brought up, what do you think we have to do that's new or different from how maybe we've operated as a ecosystem in the past?
Well, I think in regards to the ecosystem, I'm going to echo what has already been said today, which is about going on offense, and that's what Live Work Philadelphia is really all about. We're going to be very highly focused on bringing diverse middle-income people to the city of Philadelphia. This kind of all came about because I'm born and raised in Philly. I'm a Latino, let's say, middle-income person. I grew up in the Holmesburg section of Philadelphia. And all my life growing up here, I realized there was very little for someone like me and people that are in my community to do. When I started to look into why this was existing, I realized that there were simply not enough of people like myself and other communities here, and there simply were not enough middle-income people like myself. These are the folks that are able to start businesses and take advantage of opportunities in employment that the city can offer. And so all of this stemmed from the fact that in 1970, there were about 2 million people living in this city, and 69% of them were considered middle income. By 2010, we were down to 42% of those considered to be middle income, and we had lost 400,000 people. So this particular situation for Philadelphia is not helpful. And I think that as we sit in this room and talk about what's possible and what we can be hopeful about, that's what we have dedicated ourselves in, is we can talk about the big problems that exist in the city, like crime, poverty, the schools, but these are problems that have been around for a long, long time. And our position is that what's fueling a lot of this stagnation, or the fact that these problems are now anchored here in Philadelphia, is the fact that we lost our middle income population, or a big chunk of it, years ago and never got it back. Some cities have gotten it back, and they've done through immigration, but also what we're going to be honing in on is second generation folks who arrived to LA, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, but not Philly. But when they decide to move, because we all can, we want them to choose Philadelphia. And they are not choosing Philadelphia because what we might think we have a bad reputation. That's not the case at all. It's worse than that. They don't even know we exist. So if you live in New York, which is going to be our primary market of where we're going to do our work to drive people to the city of Philadelphia, we have to first be smart and strategic and understand that it's not what we want, it's what those who are beginning to move around the country, what they want. And it turns out that everything that they say through every study, Philly's got it. They just don't know about it. So that's going to be our role, to go on offense And I got to thank Chris and Danae for providing incredible talking points, and your themes are just so on point. My question, Chris, is what happened to your cute outfit? Danae brought one.
I thought I had it. A lot of soul searching.
There you go. But in response to what you're saying and what Danae is saying, that's the way that we're going to go on offense here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think we did a perception study looking specifically at tech talent at a market to see what they thought about Greater Philadelphia. Two things on all the different traits that folks could select about Philadelphia within the top 10 was unknown. And the other piece of that was, the phrase we use, Greater Philadelphia, that we think, means something. There was something like 20% of people out of market recognized that as a thing and understood what we meant by it. So offense, offense, offense. Yes. How about you, Margaret?
I think of two things. One builds off that, I think. The Science Center gave me a very sweet award in September, and I was in this room, and I said something. I made a comment about how I grew up in Cleveland, born in Pittsburgh, grew up in Cleveland, in a city where when things aren't going well, they think things are great. And now for 30 years, I've lived in a city where when things are great, people think it all sucks. And everybody laughed. And someone sent me a message thinking it was such a funny jab at Cleveland.
Oh.
I was like, wow. I'm definitely not a Philadelphian because I was not jabbing Cleveland on that one. We have to believe that we can do better. We really have to believe we can do better. And I know we can. And the second part of it that I think, beyond just believing we can do better, is we have to collaborate to get shit done.
We can curse?
We have to collaborate to get stuff done. I forget, these guys film everything. But we're not on the radio. I think it's a great honor to be the people who get shit done. 6 years ago, Bruce Katz and Jeremy Nowak, who I worked for 13 years, wrote a book called The New Localism. And they featured, everyone should at least listen to a podcast from that, because they featured cities where people come together to get stuff done. And Indianapolis is one of those that they featured. And they featured cities that come together to talk. And we were on that list. I don't want to be on that list. I'm getting old sitting here.
That's a great book. I read it as well. And Bruce makes mention that for a city to work or function really well, it needs a bunch of communities all having these broad mixed incomes, which Philly kind of got away from over the years. I always tell people, and I'm sorry if I've interrupted you, I always tell people that, my first two jobs when I was 16 and 17, growing up in my neighborhood, I found in my own neighborhood. Today, that's really hard to do. And when we look at that spectrum that was demonstrated here earlier, that first starting point is that first job for that young person. And so the idea of going on offense and bringing a lot of things to the city is so critical, because we want to make sure that first experience of someone looking for employment who will discover the tech world or be able to self-identify themselves as wanting to be in that space, it has to happen in that first job.
And I think I've used Danae's chart as much as Danae's used it, because I think it's a great reminder. Like, let's at least can I have internet at home? Yes. I can't talk about what Ben Franklin invests in if you don't start with something. And it is about building social networks much broader, so that your first job gives you a little taste of what it can be. Somebody yesterday at PAC was talking about Suleiman, and I lost his last name from Jevs. Nope, there's another Suleiman. A job, a better job, a career. ABC. I like that.
Ooh, I like that too. I will credit the correct Suleiman for that then. Yeah, okay. All right, so final question. New mayor, we're all excited. In the theme of innovation and startup, if you had to make a pitch to the new mayor about something to focus on in the early days of the administration, what would you pitch?
I think I would go right back to the basics and ask Ms. Parker to really visit a lot of neighborhoods where ideas can come from. But a lot of those residents in those communities have just simply never been asked to be a part of the solutions that the city needs. It's a lot of wins coming together that make the city great, and we need to get those wins from a lot of communities. I grew up, as I mentioned earlier, in the Northeast. And when you grow up, when you grow up in the Northeast, you learn that you are ignored completely. I can see most of you are much younger than me here, but in the 80s, the Northeast wanted to secede from Philadelphia. Yeah, it was very real, and it almost happened. I'm glad it didn't. But they had this thing going for them. They had a lot of anger because the city never pays attention to the Northeast. The Northeast is Cobman Avenue all the way up. And they basically said, we got all the cops, we got all the firemen, we have all the municipal workers, they all live over here, and they still don't pay attention to us. So I would say that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think you can go to neighborhood, do town halls, encourage people to voice their ideas, their concerns, and then give them a pathway, give residents a pathway to submit ideas and solutions for their own community. And I think that just by empowering them, we will uncover a lot of other opportunities that we might not see right now.
Thanks, Javier.
I think the City Commerce team has done a great job supporting equitable tech. And I don't see Tempest right now, but Tempest and Dawn and your whole team has done a lot of great work on that. I would encourage the mayor to think of One Philadelphia not as a program that's supported, but as the strategy for the tech ecosystem. My one concern, I've been a supporter of Danae and this work from the very beginning, is I don't want to think of this as a program. I don't want to go to the white guy session one day and then the black guy session the other day and then the women's day. I don't want to do that anymore. We're getting too old, and we've done it too many years in a row. And so we need to think of this as a strategy. When somebody shared with me the other day, reached out because she needs internships for her coding program, and you need internships. I said, what about the systems that they have to go company to company to company? Where is Philadelphia Works? Where is PIN? Where is whomever it is? How do we use our whole systems to support? Where's the chamber? I mean, the chamber can play a role in this too. And if there's a partnership with the city, there's a chance for this to be a strategy and not a program.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
What about you?
Oh, come on, Margaret. Honest to God.
It's not fair that just because you had to moderate, you have a...
I advocated for this role for this very purpose. Let me think about it. They say that there's no new idea, and I think sometimes that can be true. I would pitch an idea that started with Sheila and Gianna, the idea that this city is a model employer idea that the workforce office had. I think that municipal employment is one of the best pathways to stability and wealth. Where else do you have a pension? Where else do you have some form of guaranteed wage? This is really critical, and I think we should make serious investments because we also need a ton of people. Our city government has a huge number of vacancies, and if we make that a signature initiative of the new administration, not only are you connecting people to really high-quality jobs with pensions, but also all of our city services get better, and we have a fully operational, government workforce. So to me, I think a big bet on municipal employment is the move. Yeah. I knew she was going to do this, so I prepped for that.
I didn't know I was going to do it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I was warned. Okay, that is it for our lightning talk today. Thank you very much, Javier and Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for having us.